Hi, my name is Andy Karkowski. I'm the Parts and Service Manager here at Creeders. This is a demonstration video on how to set up and pop on your new Creeders Mach 5 popper. The first thing you want to do when you get your machine is to unbox it. After you get it unboxed, you want to make sure you remove all the packaging tape that's been placed inside the machine. You also want to remove the supply kit, which is packed inside the resealable corn bin that you see down here. I already have removed all the contents of that bin and placed it on the table. Let me show you what's included in that kit.
Corn measure, oil measure, salt container.
Your popcorn scoop. You have another smaller salt scoop. You'll get the receptacle for the machine, and then you'll also get a sample of our inside kettle cleaner. Inside the bin, the light bulbs, the heat lamps, will also be packed in there. There's two of them. I've already have one installed. I'm going to go ahead and install the second one. Okay. Once you get everything unpacked and all the tape off of the machine, you want to be certain that you have the proper power requirements for your machine. All that is specified on the serial plate, which is located on the support column of the machine. It's also listed in the manual of the popper, which is packed inside that bin. Once the proper power has been supplied, then you can plug in your machine. I'm going to go through the circuits here just to show you what each of these switches control. Let me start on this side here. The first switch is the kettle heat switch. When I turn it on, you'll see the light of the switch comes on. If you look up on top here, I'm going to go ahead and open the cabinet door so you can see inside here a little bit better. You'll see the indicator light that indicates that the kettle is heating, and then the digital controller, which is showing you the temperature of the kettle. And I'll get a little bit more into that on adjusting it when we get into the popping portion of the video. The second switch is the agitator switch. That's going to turn on the motor, the agitator motor, and it's going to turn the stir blade, which is inside the pan there, to mix the ingredients so we get a good popping. The exhaust switch turns on the exhaust fan, which is located on top of the machine here. That'll filter the smoke and steam that's being generated when you're popping corn through some filters up on top of the machine here, out through the exhaust blower, out through the top of the machine. The next switch is the conditioner switch. That's the switch that is supplying heat into the cabinet. That will allow the corn to stay crispy and crunchy, because it's going to dehumidify the cabinet, take the moisture out, and dry the corn out so it stays crunchy and fresh tasting. It'll also warm the corn a little bit too to keep it warm. And all that is blown through this perforated screen here. It blows the air from underneath here through the corn to keep it dry. The next switch is the light switch. When we turn that on, it turns on the halogen lights that illuminate the cabinet. Also the heat lamps that are located on the back side of that machine there, and also your lighted sign if you have that option. There's also several other options with an LED sign, which is also available. That switch controls that portion of the machine. The last switch that you see here is the pump switch. That'll supply power to your pump. And then up on a support column here, you have your delivery switch that when you press it will deliver the oil into the kettle for your popping. And we'll show you how to make that adjustment here shortly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set the pump up. There's three different options available for the pump. We have our 7700 series Pail pump. We have our 7900 series bag-in-the-box pump. And then we also have a oscillating pump available. The first pump we're going to cover here is the 7700 series Pail pump. That's the pump that you see right here. The electricity is supplied from the machine, and the machine will control this pump. Once you unbox the pump, you want to get your pail of oil. Now if you're using an oil like coconut oil, which is solid at room temperature, you're going to have to melt that oil first in order for the pump to work in the machine. There's a couple options you can use. We do have a hot rod which is available, and basically what this does is when you plug it in, it's just a heating element that you're going to insert into the solid oil. As it melts in, you're going to push it down in to work it in. There's a little hook on the edge of this, on the back side of this hot rod, which will allow you to hook it onto the edge of the pail, and it'll start the melting process for the oil. You can also use your pump. On this pump, when you plug it in and we turn the pump switch on, this is a heating element that when I turn on this wind-up timer will start this heating element to heat. And you will set this pump on top of the oil. As it starts heating up, you'll see it start melting. You can also rotate this pump back and forth, twist it back and forth in a clockwise and counterclockwise fashion. And the little blade that you see on the bottom here will start cutting into the oil and working itself down into the solid oil. As it gets further down in, it'll start melting it quickly. And then it'll start recessing and going all the way down into the pump. Once you get it in there, then you're fine and you can let it liquefy the oil. I have already liquefied the oil here, so to speed things up here, let me just set this cover off to the side. So the first thing we want to do is, you'll see here's the power supply for it. I'm going to move the pail in place. I'm going to set my pump in the bucket. Again, if you have that plugged in and heating it, then it'll already be in there. The pump will also come with the quick disconnect that you see here, along with a hose clamp that will connect to the hose from the machine. Now you want to try to keep this hose as short as possible. So once I get this inside the cabinet here, I'll go ahead and trim this oil tube down to allow the oil to drain back when it's done pumping, I should say. That'll prevent any oil from being left in the lines, and if it's coconut oil, we don't want it to solidify in those lines, so we want it to drain back into the pump. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the tube, set my pump up in there with the pail. So again, you want to try to keep it as short as possible. If you do need to remove the pail to change the oil, there is a quick disconnect that you see right here. You press that and that will release the oil from it, and of course the electrical just plugs into the side of the pump. Let me go ahead and plug that in. I'm going to go ahead and cut my tube here and install my quick disconnect. Make sure you put your hose clamp on first, then your quick disconnect. Then you can slide your hose clamp back down. Take a 1/4-inch nut drive or a screwdriver and tighten the clamp. And then you can connect your pump oil line to the pump. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we adjust this pump to dispense the proper amount of oil to this machine. And the way we do that is we take our oil measure and we're going to place it underneath the discharge tube that you see inside the cabinet here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the light switch so you can see that a little bit better. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and activate the pump. So we're going to turn the pump on, and then we're going to depress that push button to initiate the cycle. I'm going to keep my measuring cup underneath that discharge tube here. Once you press that button there, you always want to keep your finger by the pump switch in case it looks like it's going to overfill that cup. You can kill that timing cycle just by shutting that pump switch off. And then I'll show you how to make the adjustment on that timer. There's a timer located in the pump. On the top of this pump, there's a hole plug. You pop that hole plug off, and the timer will be located underneath there. There's a bank of 10 switches here, and they're numbered 1 to 10 On the decal next to it lists the corresponding time sequence for each of those switches. If you have multiple switches pressed on, you add those times together to give you the total time that that pump is going to run for. Each of these switches will just keep doubling in time in case this decal is gone on an older pump. But basically switch 1 is 1 second, switch 2 is 2 seconds, 3 is 4 seconds, 4 is 8 seconds, and so on. So if I have switch 3 and 4 on, 3 being 4 seconds and 4 being 8 seconds, that's going to allow this pump to run a total of 12 seconds. The 7900 series pump is a bag-in-a-box pump. The bag-in-a-box pump can accommodate 2 35-pound boxes of oil. One sits on the upper deck and one sits on the lower deck. Each of these decks are heated. There's a heat pad that will warm this top box up here, and then a heat pad that will warm the lower box. If you're using liquid oil, it really is not going to do much other than keep it warm and make sure that it stays liquid. If you're using an oil like coconut oil, which solidifies at room temperature, you want to get the heated option. With the heated option, the pump internally inside here is heated, so that'll keep that oil warm so it won't solidify. And then the lines also will have a heater that accompanies them or comes with them that keeps the lines warm. Those heaters will plug into the receptacles that are on the side of the pump. If you're using an oil like coconut oil, which is solid at room temperature, you're going to want to get a backroom warmer. The backroom warmer is just a warming unit that'll heat the boxes up and keep the oil liquid so you're able to transfer them over to your pump and use it right away. If it's a coconut oil, to put it on this warmer, it will take about 24 hours for it to melt thoroughly through. So having 4 boxes staged on the warmer ready to go will ensure the fact that you won't run out of oil on your pump. Each of these shelves are heated, and you could put 4 boxes of oil on there, and that'll just sit in the back room. It's a low wattage heater. It'll just keep that oil warm so it stays liquid. To connect the 7900 pump, what we want to do first is, on the machine, when you get a new machine, you'll have a hose already on there. We want to go ahead and disconnect that hose. Let me go ahead and remove the clamp. Then I'm going to go ahead and remove this hose. First thing I want to do is go ahead and install the rear hose. This is the one that goes from the machine to the rear fitting. Get my pliers. There's a spring clamp on this one. We're going to go ahead and slide it into place. And then slide the spring clamp up to hold the hose onto the tubing. Next, we want to go ahead and remove the shipping caps that are on the pump. And then we're going to go ahead and connect the front hose to the pump. This one has a barb fitting on there that you would just slide on, and then take your pliers to slide your spring clamp down to hold the tube onto the pump. This being a heated version, you'll also have to connect the heater to it. Just plug it in and then twist the cap. Move this stuff out of the way. Now I want to position this bag-in-a-box pump in front of the machine. I'm going to get the power cord for the pump. That's that square plug. That'll plug into the back of the bag-in-a-box pump here. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and slide my pump, or bring my pump back. The rear hose has a quick disconnect that'll allow you to remove the pump if you have to remove it for any reason. Go ahead and slide it down. And then again, this being a heated version pump, we're going to connect the rear heater to the rear receptacle here. Once you have everything connected, we can go ahead and slide this pump in position. The box of oil, this one's already liquid here. When you get it, there's an arrow that'll indicate the position that you should be, or direction that you should put the box on the shelf. We'll go ahead and put this box in on the lower shelf. That's generally where you're going to operate the pump from, the lower shelf. You're going to open this cardboard section here. It's perforated. You want to be careful. You don't want to use a knife or anything like that, because if you jab into that cardboard and puncture the bag of oil in there, you're going to have a mess. So open up the perforated section of the box, pull your valve out. Then the bag connector, we want to open it up. It'll just snap open. You'll see this channel here. We're going to slide it down over this groove here on the valve. I'm going to slide it up here actually. Open the valve all the way, slide it up in position. Once we get in position, we're going to go ahead, grab the tabs, and push down on the center portion of it. Being that the oil is liquid, you should start seeing the oil fill up in this front tube. Once this front tube fills up, you want to lift this tube up to allow the oil to drain toward the fitting, down toward the gears, which will prime it. And then when we go to initiate it to check our oil, it'll draw the oil through there into the kettle. So once we get that all connected, then the next thing we want to do is go ahead and set the time on this pump. On this pump here, the timer is located behind this hole plug. You can see that timer right down there along with the dip switches. That's where you'll make your adjustment to adjust the amount of oil that's going to be delivered into that pump. The plug-in timer is just like the 7700 pump timer, where you'll notice there'll be a bank of 10 dip switches. There'll be a decal that'll list the time setting for each of those switches. And each of those switches basically will double in time. So switch 1 is 1 second, 2 is 2 seconds, 3 is 4 seconds, and 4 is 8 seconds. If I have multiple switches on, you add those times together. So if I have switch 3, which is 4 seconds, and switch 4, which is 8 seconds on, that'll allow this pump to run for a total of 12 seconds. And you can take your measuring cup, stick it up underneath the discharge tube there to check how much oil is being delivered into the kettle. And generally, we want about a 3-to-1 ratio of corn to oil. The third option for pumps is the integrated pump or oscillating pump. Pump looks like this. It'll be mounted inside the machine. I'll go ahead and remove the drop shelf here just to show you where approximately it's mounted. There's a wire box compartment cover here located on the left side of the machine. There's 2 screws that hold it in place. When you remove that, this pump is located down in this area here. You'll have a tube that comes out, and this oscillating pump can only be used on liquid oil. You can't use it on like coconut oil where it'll solidify at room temperature, because we cannot heat this pump. So it's only used for liquid oil. So that pump's mounted down here, and then you'd have a tube that either you'll put in a pail of oil, or you can use it with a boxed oil, but it has to be liquid. With this oscillating pump, we also have a different timer than what we use in the 79 or 7700 pump. It's this little gray timer here. There are 2 adjustment wheels. The top adjustment wheel is what's going to set the range for the lower, larger wheel, and it'll probably be set at 1M, which is 1 minute. That means this larger wheel on the bottom here will have a range of 0 to 60 seconds. So when you make an adjustment on it, you'll do the same thing. You'll take your measuring cup, stick it underneath the discharge tube there, go ahead and turn your pump on, hit your delivery switch, see how much oil is outputted, and then if you need to increase the amount of oil, you would just rotate that larger dial to add in more time. If I have this set at 5, because it goes 0 to 10, and the range of that wheel is 0 to 60 seconds, and I have it set at 5, that's obviously going to allow that timer to run for 30 seconds. And then you can, like I said, you can make the adjustment with that large wheel. Again, go ahead and take your measuring cup, stick it, once you make the adjustment, take your measuring cup, stick it underneath that discharge tube there, and then see if you're discharging the correct amount of oil into your measuring cup. Once you get that set, that you can put your cover in place, you shouldn't have to make any adjustments on it once it's been set, so you can close that up and then put your other parts back into the machine. Stop. Those are the steps needed to set up your Mach 5 machine and the proper sequence and for the popping of the machine. If you do have@, please contact our offices at 1-800-228-1885 or email me at akarkowski@creators.com.